Welcome to France 24 interview. My guest today is the founder of the Save Children movement and the president of Children's Foundation, which carries his name. Kailash Satyarthi, thank you for being with us on our program, and thank you, and happy to meet you again.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Kailash, you are famous for many people for being the Nobel Prize of 2014 that you shared with Malala Yousafzai from Pakistan, but also for your work as a children rights activist. And this is all what we're going to try to discover today during our program, to know your journey before, of course, and after 2014. To start, you were born on January 11th on 1954 in Vidisha, a small town in central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. Tell us just some words, at least, about this part of the world that you've been born in.
Well, this is very much in the center of India, as you said. But I was very inspired being born there, because it's an ancient place where Ashoka, the Emperor Ashoka of India, who adopted Buddhism, and two of his children, Mahendra and Sanghamitra, were born and grew up in Vidisha, and they were the first messengers of peace and non-violence through Buddhism. They became Buddhist monks and moved towards Eastern Asian countries. So everybody was inspired by them, and I was very inspired, and I started feeling that there must not be any border or any boundaries or any walls between human beings. So the message of love, the message of compassion and peace should go beyond the borders. And that was since my childhood.
Exactly, and you were raised in a middle-class family, and you had one elder brother, I think, right?
Three elder brothers and one elder sister.
Okay. Your father was a police constable and your mother housewife, but also a woman with strong values and ideals. And you've been talking a lot about her each time. Am I right to say that she had a big impact on you?
Definitely, my mother had big impact on me, because though she was not educated, not even literate, but somehow she had big passion for education. So all her children, including her daughter, my elder sister, was sent to school, and my elder sister was retired recently as the headmistress from a high school for girls, and she devoted all her life for girls' education. So was my brothers. I was the youngest in the family, but everybody got higher education. And that was because of my mother's commitment for education, or conviction for education for her children. And secondly, she was very kind to my neighbors, though some of them were Muslims, because I
You're in an area where there's Hindi and
exactly
Muslims.
In front of me, there was a mosque. In the corner of my house, there was a temple.
Yeah.
So I was living in the middle of both, and I was listening Holy Quran. I was listening Hindu Gita and other kind of things.
So a place where faiths can just meet peacefully.
Yeah, faith where, and there was no tensions actually, because I used to sit with a Muslim cleric almost every day. And I started learning some Urdu and...
in the mosque, right?
In the mosque,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. Because mosque was just close to
Yeah.
my house. So that also had impact on me. And when these people used to come to my home, they were coming as other Hindus coming. So it was great time.
Kailash, you said that you've questioned caste discrimination from an early age. When at your first day in school, you noticed something that really had a big impact on you. You noticed that a cobbler's son outside the school was waiting and not getting inside with you and your friends. And you've been asking, why is this child just like you still staying outside? You had even to question his father, who told you that his family and his sons, just like all the others from their area, are not born to go to school, and that's something that you didn't want to accept.
Absolutely, because I had no idea about the caste system at that age of 5.
He was just a child for you and not getting the same chances that
Yeah, exactly, because I was told since I gained some senses that every child was supposed to go to school after some years. So when I was 5.5 years old, I was sent to school. But when I saw that cobbler boy sitting outside, I was disturbed because I could not understand that why he is not with the rest of us in the classroom. And when I asked this question to my teacher, he said, "Oh, come on, this is quite common. Poor children have to help the families, they work like that. Just put your mind in studies and make new friends. This is your first day." More or less same answer was given by my family and my other friends, but I was not convinced. So that made me upset, disappointed, but angry from inside, that why these people are saying all these kind of things. And as you said, that one day I gathered all my courage to ask directly to this boy and his father. So boy of my age was shy, but his father miserably answered. He said, "Sir, I never thought about it. My father, my grandfather, and I started going to work since our childhoods. And so is my son," he said. And then he told with folded hands, empty eyes, which I could not forget, the child's eyes looking at father and father's eyes looking at me. He said, "Sir, you guys are born to go to school, but we are born to work." And that made me so angry. And I started crying out of anger and pain, that why some children are born to work at the cost of their childhood, their freedom, their education, and their future. And I could not convince myself. And that gave me a different perspective of life. And I started thinking, even if what my teachers say or what my parents say, my family says, may not be correct. Because there is a wrong, there is an injustice, there is a social perception which has been going on for ages, and people come out with answers instead of questioning those things. And this incident gave me some sort of courage to question, and courage to question wrongs, and could distinguish what is righteousness, what is justice, which we have to discover.
Yeah, because you've been saying before, I heard one of your speeches, and you said that we're supposed to be born with the same chances, which was not the case of that cobbler's son. And just to go further, is that you're not just questioning what was happening, but you also did something, even if you were young. You set up a small library, I think, where you asked all your friends to bring their old books, and to bring them why? To bring them to help poor children get access to education, get access to books. Yeah. So you wanted to act and not just get angry.
Yeah, because I believe that anger is a power, anger is an energy which can never be destroyed. So why don't we channelize that energy of anger into some constructive solutions to the problem and constructive answers? Because normally the anger becomes destructive.
That's right.
When it is driven by hate, when it is driven by selfish interest or egos, then it is violent and destructive. But when anger is channelized for the better cause, for justice, that I tried to learn from this incident. So when some of my friends were not coming to school and they were forced to leave school because their parents could not bring syllabus books, they had no money. So then an idea came to my mind to find answers out of these questions, that let us collect some used books from our friends and from everyone, anyone in my town. And I started bagging books on one day, and we were able to collect thousands of books. And then we created a book bank. That was a kind of library, but a book bank where the needy boys and girls can borrow books for 1 year, and then they will have to return next year. so that it could be recurring thing and other children can also be benefited out of it. So almost every child in my town, a small town, could be benefited out of it. And the people started calling me Kailash Book Bank Wala, means book bank boy. And the most moving incident happened when, after the Nobel Prize, I went to my hometown, and all the people, everyone, every single person was on the street to greet me and hug me and kiss me. I saw from a distance, in that emotional spur of moment, that there were two guys, old, elderly-looking man. One of them saying, Kailash, Kailash, listen, listen, listen. So, and he was crying. So I called him close to me. And that was very difficult in the crowd. It was so packed. Even stampede had happened 2 times. So somehow I called him close to me. And he was crying. He said, could you recognize me? Who am I? I said, sorry. He said, oh, because of your books, I was able to continue my education. And then I got teacher and headmaster. And I was retired as the head teacher from my school, and it is because of you. You are book bank wala, Kailash. So when he says with that much emotion, book bank boy, you are book bank boy, I could recall, oh, that is much more bigger accomplishment for me than the Nobel Prize. I was not so emotional at the time
someone's life.
Because I could feel that my life was some worth. When the Nobel Prize was announced, I did not cry. Tears did not come out of my... I was hugging and meeting my friends. They were all crying. But that time I hugged that man. I started crying out of joy. And I felt so good about it. So,
that's the best prize, to tell you
that is the best prize, actually.
You changed someone's life. Kailash, you attended the government boys' higher secondary school in Vidisha and completed your degree in electrical engineering and a postgraduate degree in high voltage engineering. My question is, at that time, what were you dreaming of becoming?
My dream was always to help children, always. It was the family expectation or some sort of pressure, social pressure, that they wanted me to become engineer. And I was scoring very good marks with the grace of God in science and mathematics. And the best or the most lucrative career was engineer, so they wanted to make me like that. And I did it, but I was always following my heart. And I thought that if I follow my heart, then my mind will follow me. And once I will control my mind and it starts following me, then everybody will follow my mind.
Which we can see is right now. Just before I ask you my next question, I have another small one. Can you explain to us and to our viewers, what does it mean in India to practice untouchability? What is that, to be untouchable for some people?
Well, now the things have improved a lot, I would say. But even then, untouchability still exists in remote areas. In big cities and towns, it is more or less gone, because you can't understand, you can't know whose caste is who. But when it comes to marriage, they will never marry to low caste boy or low caste girls. Families and relatives can be violent. Even they can kill the boy or girl if their sibling is marrying to the low caste girl or boy. So that is still there in most places. But in small villages, remote villages, it's very rigid. These low caste who are born in a certain segment of society, it's like a social apartheid. They are not allowed to go to those temples where the high caste Hindus, the priest or high caste Hindus go. They cannot take water from those wells or from even those public water taps where the high caste people do. In many cases, they are not allowed to pass through those streets where the high caste people live. They cannot sit on a horse, because in India, at the time of marriage, the wedding, the groom used to sit on the horse and goes in the wedding party, and there's a lot of drums and bands and whatnot, music, loud music, the Indian typical wedding. But if a low caste, untouchable person tries to do it in the neighborhood of high caste people, there could be a fight, there could be a quarrel. So
they
these
can't
things
touch anything that the high caste can touch also.
They can't touch those food products or items in the village. As I said, that in cities and towns, because of education, the things have changed, and also because of communication and connectivity.
The minds are changing now.
The minds are changing due to education.
If we go a few decades before, one of the Indian figures that influenced you during your childhood was Mahatma Gandhi. And if I'm correct, in 1969, you and your friends decided to celebrate Gandhi's birth century in your very own way. Own way that is disturbing for others. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, God, you know more about me than I know about myself. All the stories, So anyway, so why do I need here to interview you?
I'm trying to take you back to your childhood.
No, that's right. It's really heartening or emotional to remember all those things. So when the city was, or the whole country was celebrating Mahatma Gandhi's birth centenary, I was very impressed with the speeches of the high caste leaders. And they were all talking against untouchability and discrimination, which Gandhi fought for. So I was very impressed, and I thought that I should become a political leader like them. So I thought that let us organize a feast where the untouchable women, those who were sweepers, who used to clean our streets but also clean our open toilets, they will come and make food. And then the high caste people will definitely come, the leaders, because the leaders were against caste system, the leaders were against untouchability. So I thought that let us organize something like that. So I went to those women and they said, what are you talking? It is not possible. It can never happen. These people cannot touch us. They cannot touch our shadow. Forget about touching us physically. So even then, I touched their feet as they were all elderly, out of respect, and requested them to please do it. And somehow, some of them agreed. And a place was fixed, date was fixed, and leaders knew me as book bank boy. So when I went to them and requested them to come, everybody said, oh, bravo, young man, you are good, you are so naive. So we will definitely come. Somehow the food was cooked. These people were invited, but none of them turned up. I went to remind them. Some of them said, oh, my stomach is bad. Others said, I have a very important meeting now. So not a single person came to eat that food. And that was a big shock for me. I knew about untouchability, I knew about caste system, I knew about many other things by that time, but I never knew that kind of deep hypocrisy prevailing in our society. People keep on preaching something else, but practicing altogether different. So I was very upset and angry that evening. And somehow I started eating food. And I got so burst out of my emotional burst. I started crying. And then I saw that an elderly, so-called untouchable woman put her hand on my shoulder. And then she said that, my son, why are you crying? You have done which has never been done in this town. So you should be happy, you should be proud. And we are so proud that this big revolution has happened. At least you are eating. So I ate. Then I went back home. I saw that the light in my courtyard was on, and I could hear some noise from outside. And as soon as I entered, everybody was angry with me. Not only my family, but there were some high caste priest people sitting, not political leader, but priest. And they were threatening my family to outcast. And that was the biggest. To
evict you from your own caste? Because they're
so
angry.
The whole family, and my mother and my brothers, etc., they were pleading My mother was crying and saying that, please listen to the boy, but what mistake we have done. We were not involved. We were not the party to this event. So they started threatening me to outcast. And finally, they agreed that since the boy is the sinner, he should go to river Ganges to take holy dip. And
seek for forgiveness.
So for forgiveness, for purification.
Yeah.
And the river Ganges was about 1,000 kilometers from my hometown. So I was supposed to be taken there. And after that, when I come back, then my family had to organize a feast with 101 priests, Brahmins, the highest caste, because my family also belonged to that caste. So then I was supposed to wash their feet and drink that water.
Oh, wow.
So I said, no, nonsense, I'm not going to do it. Whatever you want to do, do. So finally the punishment was that I should be given a separate room, separate utensils. The food would be given only in my room. So I was excluded from everything. And someone like me, who was the youngest son in the family and the most adorable child. So I used to sit with my mother.
You were
spoiled in a way.
Yeah.
I was spoiled and I was
now,
spoiling everything.
Yeah,
and now
excluded.
So excluded and outcasted in a way. And I could not go inside the kitchen where I used to eat with my mother every day, or my mother used to eat with me. So she used to give food outside. And that night was again a turning point in my life. I started thinking that who are these people to outcast me? Let me outcast the entire caste system, entire untouchability and all kind of these things.
Is that why you changed your name?
And that is the time I thought that the most effective way, though it is difficult that time, but for me it was easier to give up my family name, my surname or my caste name, because family names are normally caste names in India. So I gave up my name, and then I looked for a new name for myself, and that is Satyarthi. And Satyarthi means seeker of truth. So until Nobel Prize, nobody knew
that
nobody
story.
knew. But then the journalists, the people of your clan, they were very clever. They went and found out they digged out my caste and my family and everything. Otherwise, people thought that
it was just your name.
Just my name.
How was your family reacting after that when you changed your name?
Oh, they were very upset. They were very angry. I mean, they were very sad because they never wanted this thing to happen with me, because they all loved me. And they knew that I've been doing things like that a little bit different or disruptive. Now we call disruptive.
Kind of rebellion all the time.
Yeah.
When can we, I know that you have been interested by children's rights, as we said just right now, from your early age, but when did you decide to focus on that and to be involved on that fight for your life? When did you decide that?
Actually, when I started thinking to do something for children, the conventional wisdom was that I should open an orphanage for poor children, or I should open a school free of cost, things like that. That was the conventional thought. But I was not convinced, being a system engineer or analyst, because I saw the problem is deep-rooted and structural problem, systemic problem, and I have to find the solution from the systems in a way. Means new policies, laws. People should feel the respect for children rather than making pity or charity for them. So charity was no answer for this deep-rooted problem. So I had no answer because nobody was working this manner. Everybody was doing charity. Because UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, the whole notion of rights of the child in the world was accepted only in 1989. So that is quite new. But I'm talking about 60s, 70s, in late 70s. But finally I decided to give up my career to educate and sensitize the people, and I started magazine to bring these issues to the public knowledge, to sensitize and educate people. And one day, a desperate father knocked my door, whose daughter was about to be sold to a brothel. And he told that story, that how he and his newly married wife were trafficked or lured away to work at a brick kiln 17 years ago. And during that time, they were not paid anything. They were not allowed to leave the place. All children were born and grew up in slavery, including their 15-year-old daughter. And when that daughter was to be sold, this man ran away somehow. He escaped in the middle of the night in search of some help. And luckily, a subscriber of my magazine, because magazine was devoted exclusively for this cause, so he gave this magazine's copy to this guy. His name was Basal Khan. He was a Muslim guy. So he came only with this expectation that I'm going to publish this story so that government can act or something could happen. But when I was writing that story, I thought that if she was my daughter or my sister, what would I do? I would hold the whole world upside down. I will do every possible thing to rescue her. So I told Basal, I'm going to go with you to rescue your daughter. He said, no, these people are mafia, they will kill you. But somehow I managed some friends, made them agree to go with me. I requested my wife to give her wedding ornaments so that we can organize some logistics. And finally we went there. And I was beaten up, my colleagues were beaten up, Basal Khan was caught, and I had to come empty hands, but not empty heart. I started thinking something else is possible. So I met some lawyer friends. One of them went to the court with me. And finally, within few days, we were able to rescue not only this beautiful sister of mine, but 36 children, women and men all together. And that was the new discovery in my life, the discovery of freedom. Because writing, talking, using the phrase liberty, freedom is simple, good, looks good. But feeling it, realization of freedom is different. So I could feel that freedom, and I always say that it was like a moment of truth for me, where I could feel God on the faces of those children who were smiling and jumping, laughing, and those mothers and fathers who were crying out of joy and the tears rolling down on their cheeks and hugging their children. So I said, oh God, this is the real Allah, this is the real God, this is the real whatever we call. So
it was the beginning of a journey.
So that was the beginning of journey,
Yeah.
and since then I never looked back, and yeah.
We will get back to that, because this is a way of activism that you decided to follow. But just let's stop for a few seconds about the Nobel Prize 2014. As I said, you received it alongside with the Pakistani activist Malala Yousafzai. Your work has been acknowledged through various national and international honors and prizes. But did this prize, the Nobel Prize, change something in your fight?
Definitely. So first of all, it was a surprise. It was a shock for me, because I could not imagine that Nobel Prize will come to me, and I would be a Nobel laureate one day. But I tell you that since it was the first time in the Nobel history that they had acknowledged the issue of most exploited, the most marginalized, abused children as important issue, that sustainable peace is not possible without protecting children. So that was a very clear signal. And within 35 minutes of the Nobel Prize announcement, on 10th of October 2014, millions, hundreds of millions of people learn about child slavery does exist in this world, and somebody is fighting against it. Child labor is a curse. In 35 minutes, the amount of awareness was generated which I could not build in 35 years of my struggle, in 35 minutes, which could be possible. So that was a great accomplishment within an hour. And then, of course, I always say that this is a comma in my life. It is not full stop. It cannot make me exclusive, celebrity, nothing. I am using it as much as I can. And first of all, I immediately decided that I will push for inclusion of child-related clauses in Sustainable Development Goals. When some presidents or prime ministers or heads of United Nations agencies started calling me up, "Congratulations, Mr. Satyarthi." I said, "Thank you very much. I wanted to have a meeting with you because I have an agenda." They said, "Yeah, sure, please come and talk to us." So I met President Obama, I met several presidents and prime ministers, and UN Secretary General 2 times.
So that was an opportunity to meet those leaders. So that was an opportunity.
And finally, all these things which I was demanding were incorporated as the part of Global Development Agenda, as the part of Sustainable Development Goals. So that was a major breakthrough. And that gave me a tremendous kind of strength from inside.
So you said the world discovered that there is someone who is fighting. And you're not just fighting. You and your team have liberated more than 87,000 children in India from child labor, slavery, and human trafficking. For those who would like to know more about it, you have a great documentary that is about your work, about what you're doing and your fight. Can you tell us in as long as you want, because I think that this is important, what you have been doing for so many years with those great people you have in your team, because you've been really liberating children, because you've been going with your crew to take them, because a lot of children in India work in factories to do items that are sold after that in the Western world, for example. So tell us about that.
Well, I'm very fortunate to have some of the most incredible, most courageous, dedicated people with me. But when we say the greatest one, I have lost 3 of them.
Yes.
One was shot dead, one was beaten to death. So martyr Dhumdas was beaten to death. Martyr Adarsh Kishore was killed in one night, and he was shot dead. And Kalu Kumar has sacrificed his life while he was working in the field. So people like that. And it was always a very dangerous work. When I was fighting against this evil, as I said, I was inviting a lot of enmity. A lot of people started considering me and my colleagues as enemies, and they wanted to kill us. They wanted to harm us in any manner they can. Going in to rescue the children was always a risky proposition, because these people could attack us that time, and they did it many times. I have my broken left foot. I have my broken right shoulder. I have my backbone broken, my ribs are broken. So these things happened many times. But each time when they attacked me, I felt that I'm becoming stronger, because these people are becoming weaker, and they feel fear, they feel threatened, and that's why they wanted to kill us. So that was the journey. But it was rewarding in a way, so we kept on working. But we knew that freeing one child or 2 child or 200 or 1 million children is not going to put an end to slavery, because the new children could come and replace them if we don't find some other solution. So one thing was to educate consumers, that consumers have power, and that power could be translated into pressure on the companies to ensure that they are not using child labor in their production, in their supply chain. So that I began with the carpet industry. A number of carpet manufacturers, exporters, and importers agreed to join my call, and we have been able to evolve a system of monitoring and a social labeling named Rug Mark earlier and now known as Goodweave in the rug industry in entire South Asia, India, Pakistan, and Nepal. That was again quite tough because when I started working in Pakistan, the Indians told that I'm Pakistani agent. Pakistanis told that I'm Indian intelligence agent and I'm trying to disturb their industry or their country and things like that. So it was very, very difficult. Sometimes Hindus told that he is agent of Muslim or Christian. Muslim said that he is an Hindu. What? It was funny, but not easy actually to see all those things and feel those things around me, all these allegations and so on. But finally, in this case, particularly case of carpet industry, I'm proud to say that the number of child laborers, and most of them were slaves and trafficked ones in South Asia, came down from 1 million in late 90s to hardly 200,000 now. So 800,000 lesser number of children are engaged in carpet industry in South Asia. And then everybody realized that since the export has not gone down, since the production has not gone down, that means these children were replaced, or child laborers were replaced by able-bodied jobless adults. And these jobless adults are none but the very parents or elder brothers and sisters of these children who are earning more money than children, and they are not exploited like children were. So that was a great example of consumers' consciousness and my collaboration with the industry. Because I was not against industry, I was against this evil. And that has been a successful example.
Plus all the advocacy activities you're doing. Of course, you founded the Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation in 2004. You have been organizing marches, you have been doing a lot of things, even before the Nobel Prize. The documentary we've been talking about is called The Price of Free, and we can see really all the work you're doing. But my question now is, what do you think now that you still have to do on that fight? What you're asking the world to do to help you in that fight?
Oh, I have to do a lot. And I cannot sit quiet. I cannot be satisfied without freeing every child from slavery, without ensuring childhood, freedom, dignity back to every child. Because the children in this part of the world, children in another part of the world, may it be Indian children or Sudanese children or Syrian children, American children, they are my children. And I cannot just wait that others will come and do. Of course, everybody should do, but I will do because I believe in that they are my children. So, my foundation, apart from other activities which we do of freeing children, advocacy activities, policy-related work for making new laws in India or elsewhere in the world and enforcement of those laws, fighting for education of every child, engaging corporations all over the world, we are also engaged in three other things. One is to build a strong moral force, moral voice. And that's why I have created a platform called Laureates and Leaders for Children. The reason being that there is a serious moral deficit in all spheres of life, in all sections of life. And that's why even if we make good laws globally, if we use good language, but that remains hollow if there is no strong moral commitment. So this platform of Nobel laureates and moral leaders is emerging as a strong voice which cannot be ignored by any government or any United Nations agencies. So that has been created already. We had the first summit in Delhi, the second summit in Jordan, and we are planning the third summit again. And more laureates are showing interest in it, and they are becoming the voices for children. The second thing is involving youth, because I have full, or I would say only trust, real trust in youth, because they are still pure, they are full of energy and enthusiasm, they have a sense of idealism, they wanted to prove themselves that they do exist. They have some sort of quest or some sort of hunger to do something good for the society, but in most cases they don't see any clear purpose, a clear program or platform. So I decided that at least 100 million youth who are in better off conditions in schools, colleges, universities, etc., professions, these 100 million youth should become the voices, the change makers and champions for the cause of those 100 million young people who are victims of violence, slavery, trafficking, child marriages, etc. So 100 million for 100 million is my new initiative, which has been launched already in about 40 countries by now, and it is growing because the student leaders, youth organizations are showing interest in it. So that is the major thing now.
And the third one?
And the third one is to create a global policy institute, because there is no policy think tank for children that can come out with more holistic policies, because the policies related to children are so fragmented. Some organizations are working on education, others are working on child labor, some are working on health, others are working on malnutrition, and that goes up to the United Nations agencies. They are also so segmented or so compartmentalized. So I wanted to bring these issues closer on the basis of grassroots experiences from all across the world, from civil society organizations, governments, faith institutions, businesses, and then I wanted to convert them into more holistic policies for children that could be used by everyone. So that institute is needed, so we are working on it. So I started some work on it.
We only have 30 seconds left. So I want to finish, because you've been talking about meeting leaders of the world, and that's important. But I think also that religious leaders are important. And you had the chance to meet His Holiness, the Pope Francis. How was that meeting? And that will be the end of our interview.
I have met Pope Francis recently, and he was very friendly, very positive, and that was a very constructive meeting, because I had gone to him with two specific issues. One was a demand for support for a new UN convention against online child sexual abuse, pornography, and online trafficking of children. So that should be a legally binding UN convention, also linked with the global task force. We should have the extraterritorial judicial authority to act, because this online sexual abuse and pornography is a huge problem. And Pope has immediately supported it. Not only supported, but he has deputed a senior officer from the Vatican to coordinate with my organization. The second issue was about the sexual exploitation of children by the priest in church institutions. So that was a very sensitive and delicate issue, but I brought before Pope, and he was extremely positive, and he said that I'm very serious and concerned about it. And I have requested him that in the next meeting, which he is calling in February for the presidents of this Catholic bishop conferences, I requested that this should be a very concrete meeting, should come out with a robust roadmap so that we can put an end to this menace in this institution of church. And he immediately responded that it would be a practical meeting and will come out with practical solutions.
Kailash Satyarthi, thank you very much for this interview, and thank you for all what you're doing, not only for children, but for the whole humanity. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Stay tuned on France 24.